you're all set.
Okay, great. Good evening. This is the meeting of the Village New Paltz Environmental Policy Board for Tuesday, October 13th, 2020. Our meeting time is 6:30 and we're doing this meeting by Zoom. My name is Ted Nitza. I'm the chair of the Environmental Policy Board, and I'll allow the other members and folks here to introduce themselves. Don, can we start with you?
Don Kerr from the Village New Paltz.
And I'm Fiona Bowen, and I believe this will be just about 1 year on the Village GPB.
Thanks for that.
Annabelle or Riley, do you want to introduce yourselves or Candy?
Yeah, I'm Annabelle Evans, and I'm a researcher for the EPB.
I'm Riley Corzine, and I'm also a researcher.
And I'm Ariana Basco, and I'm the secretary.
Okay, so we have quorum for this meeting, and so I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Our tradition is to make available the public comment at the beginning of our meetings. Seeing none, we don't have any public comments, but the comment or the public is invited to comment or join us when they like. And if there's questions, those are concerns about the environmental type issues, we do have a village email address, and it's environment@villageofnewpaltz.edu. I hope. If not, we'll correct it. But there are ways to reach out to us. There are no public hearings scheduled for this evening. Administrative actions. The agenda has been out while we were meeting here, getting ready for this meeting. I added a meeting schedule for 2021 under new business. If there's no other changes or concerns with the agenda, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda for this evening.
So moved.
Seconded.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right. Approval of minutes. The minutes were put together by Ariana for September of last month. I didn't have any concerns, questions, or changes to that. If you guys had a chance to look at it, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the September meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. There are no claims for paid. And announcements, which may be a little bit incorrect. Rachel, a longtime member of the Environmental Policy Board, is now a part of the Village Planning Board. Ariana has indicated she'll reach out to Rachel to check in on our status as to the Environmental Policy Board. I think it would be premature to say she's left the Environmental Policy Board, as I've got it indicated on the agenda, but we do need some kind of feedback from her because of her new status and not being here this evening. Regardless, though, I think Rachel has done a lot of great service, a long tenured member of the Environmental Policy Board, and deserves all of our thanks. Village Planning update by Don. Don, you want to walk us through things, or
Sure.
going on with the Village Planning Board?
Yeah. So the Village Planning Board 2 meetings ago had a training that lasted, I guess, about 45 minutes to an hour by their attorney in the SEEKR process, which stands for State Environmental Quality Review. And part of the law that set up our group, the Environmental Policy Board, says that we have the responsibility to advise the Village Board on issues concerning SEEKR. So I found the training really helpful. I think it's a really good idea for me to take a few minutes and just run over a condensed version of how that process works so we all know it, so we can do our job. And the example I wanted to use was the new Stewart's shop being built at the bottom of Henry W. Du Bois. I had sent around what is called the EAF, Environmental Assessment Form. So SEEKR is a law, and it defines exactly what sorts of projects fall into what categories under the law. And depending on the category that it falls into, type 1 or type 2, they fill out either a long environmental assessment form, the form that I emailed you with regard to Stewart's, or, pardon me, a short or a full. Those are the proper terms. And the full form, the one I emailed to this group, is 14 pages long. And the purpose of that, and the reason it was written into the law, was to give planning boards an idea of exactly what questions to ask, what things to look for. So they cover everything you can imagine, or try to anyway. Is it near a historic district? Is it near a body of water? Are you going to excavate? All sorts of questions like that for 14 pages. And then once that process is done and people can assess the information, a lead agency is appointed. Generally the planning board, but sometimes other agencies, and then involved agencies. In terms of Stewart's, involved agencies might be the state DEC. It might be the village board. It might be a number of other entities which are not taking the lead in this process, but have an interest and may have some input. So once the lead agency has been appointed, that agency, often the planning board, determines the environmental significance, either positive, negative, or conditional. And based on that, there is a scoping process to figure out how big the issue might be of concern. It's called an environmental EIS. Anyway, it's called EIS. I don't recall what the letters stand for, but it's essentially the EIS is another long form which determines exactly what the planning board wants. And then the applicant, the person who wants to build something, creates a document in response that says, here are your concerns. Here's what we're going to do to deal with these concerns. And then they get locked in. And that's how the project must proceed. I was looking at the Stewart's document, and they did not check off the box for excavation. And as I'm going down the street to my office every day, I see them digging these big pit for the gas storage tanks, which is clearly excavation. And it took 3 days and 6 emails, but finally got a response, a clear response from the planning board attorney that if you're not removing the dirt from the site, it's not excavation. If they were trucking the dirt off to somewhere and dumping the dirt, that would be excavation and subject to other rules. But since they're keeping the dirt on site, that is why they did not check off the excavation box. So I'm explaining this because next big project that comes down the pike, it looked like it was going to be the pit project. Next big project that comes down the pike, I'd like us to be ready to do our job. And I just wanted to run out, I'll take the lead on that as the liaison to the planning board, but I want to make sure everyone understands what this law does and how many steps are involved. And I guess if you look at a project purely through the lens of the environment, we might be very helpful to the village board and to the planning board in terms of pointing out some things like the excavation box isn't checked off, and why is that? And we now know. So that's the reason I wanted to spend a little bit of time just explaining this so that I understood it better, but so that the board knew what the process was that we are by law supposed to advise the village board on. And lastly, the reason everyone thought the pit project was a little strange, it's obviously a major project. All they supplied was the short form for the EAF. And it's a major project that would require a long form. So when the planning board saw that they had submitted just a short form and we hadn't heard anything from them since then, that's when the discussion came, maybe this thing is not going forward as we thought it was. And so that's still up in the air. But for that to move forward, they would need to fill out a long form, that 14-page long form. And then the village board and the planning board and this board could really start to get into it, but that hasn't happened, and that would be the trigger. So that's my 10 minutes from the planning board.
Yeah, I think that was very complete. Are there any items, is there any updates on the other items that are working through the planning board process? Anything on Stewart's traffic light or any other applications that are working their way through?
Well, they can't get a certificate of occupancy to actually move in and open the store until the light is there. And there is some sort of backlog, as there is with everything, on the poles that hold the traffic lights. They're on back order. So when the traffic light poles come and they install the lights and that date is not known, then they can proceed to open. But that will not likely be before spring. There's no other projects of significance that I recall. There's some residential things, and generally with residential things, unless there's some red flags, it doesn't really get too much of my attention. I know they don't have the plans yet, but the auto repair shop, which is kind of catty corner across the street from the new Stewart's, Roddy Serta's place, he is proposing, and I've seen drawings of a 3-story building with commercial on the bottom and rental units on the top, but that hasn't really formally come before the board yet. They've talked about it, but it's not in the approval process as of yet. That's probably the next big thing coming down the pike. And then someone's going to want to do something with the old Stewart site, and someone's going to want to do something with the Agway site. But those things, haven't happened yet.
The Agway site already went through the process, right? Some kind of chocolate facility. Chocolate.
The sale fell through. It was going to be a
Oh.
commercial bakery, and right when the COVID stuff hit, I think the new owners kind of got scared and backed out.
Okay. Well, that's a good update. I was waiting for chocolate.
Yeah. There's Augustus,
Yeah. Okay. All right. Any questions for Don? Any other planning board items? Okay. Thanks again, Don. Next item is the awareness and collaboration report from the town's Environmental Conservation Board. I also serve on the town's Environmental Conservation Board as a member, and for the main purpose of being able to communicate back and forth between the two agencies. Normally, we have the town's Environmental Conservation Board meeting on a Wednesday of this. It was last Wednesday because of deadlines, which I can talk about during the meeting. The main items that were discussed were our own planning board liaison schedule. I think I'm scheduled to be there be at the planning board meeting for the town at the October 26th meeting in much the same capacity that Don does for us at all the meetings. The next item, which took most of our meeting time, was the Environmental Conservation Board did discuss and then vote to appeal the town's planning board. The building inspector's decision to allow the vegetative buffer along the throughway of the CBS site, Trans Hudson site, to be used as a trail. It is a decision, decision was asked of by the building or to the building inspector rather than the planning board or the town board. The decision was made that Trans Hudson could consider putting the trail inside of that 30-foot buffer. And the Environmental Conservation Board has elected or voted to appeal that to the BZA, or the town's ZBA, zoning board appeals. So that'll be moving forward here in the next couple of weeks, but I think it is a pretty noteworthy item. The next item we talked about was the Sporting Clays wetland mitigation. It's a site owned or operated by Sporting Clays. Many months ago, more than a year, maybe 2 years ago, they were cited for violating wetland type rules by operating or filling in wetland areas on their site. And for the last several months, I've been working through a a process to rectify or fix that. We were notified as of our last meeting that they have walked away from that process. And so our Environmental Conservation Board, we are officially reaching out to the town board to encourage them to follow up on that or to ask Sporting Clays to re-engage. Otherwise, the violation stands as an open case, so it needs to be resolved one way or the other. Janelle gave a climate smart update, and Ingrid talked about the community preservation fund that is on the docket or on the ballot for this November. It involves whether or not the residents of New Paltz Town and Village want a community preservation element added to real estate transactions. If you don't know much about it and you are a member of, or you're eligible to vote, I encourage you to look into the topic. It's interesting and worth your time. One of the projects is still underway is we've, as Environmental Policy or Conservation Board, have decided to look at the tree law or the tree cutting law for trees that are close to the right of way. And then we're also putting out a wetlands brochure later this year that is framed after the Woodstock version of the same, that talks about the town of New Paltz's wetland rules and regulations as an informative brochure. That's all we have. If there's any questions, I can address those.
Actually, Ted, I was wondering if you think that we should take a position as a board, like write a letter about that ballot proposal, or if you think it's something we would typically stay out of, I guess, and just let the voters, do their own research.
I don't see a reason why we couldn't state our position. I'm not aware of any rules that would prohibit that. Ariana, is there that you're aware of?
Because I was just wondering, I know when we had that joint meeting with the town EPB, I think that they had a plan. I can't remember the specifics, that was hoping to rely on that funding. And so if you think that it's very important to their mission or our joint interests, I'm not pushing one way or the other per se. I'm not sure if that's something we typically do or if we want to even set the precedent for it. But I just want to throw it out there.
Yeah, I personally, I'm in favor. I plan on voting for it. I would encourage my neighbors, if the topic comes up, to do the same, other members of the community. The appropriateness of a letter like that, Don, any thoughts or comments on that?
Well, I was interested in taking a position on the widening of Henry W. at the last meeting. So philosophically, I think it's appropriate for this board to take a position on environmental issues. I think that's what we're there for. So consistent with my position at last meeting about that project, I'm certainly in favor of taking a position on this project or this ballot issue.
Okay, all right.
I don't think there's any reason why you couldn't.
All right. There have been several letters to the editor. I can tell you my known workload right now, I'm not able to write a letter, but if someone wants to volunteer to write a letter that we would approve, I'd be willing to hear that motion.
I'd be happy to start drafting something. I know that the election's pretty soon, so I'm not sure if I don't know what the publication schedule is for the letters to the editor, but hopefully we'd be able to get something in before the 3rd.
Yeah, I believe if you get something in by the Friday before publication, it would be in the next week's paper.
Oh, okay.
And I think so you have something to write about. Unless there's an objection, I'd like to make a motion that we support the passage of the resolution, which Ariana, you can fill in the proper language. I'd like to make that motion that we have to take a vote so that Fiona has something to put in her letter.
Right. And I'd second that motion.
Yeah, I agree. Any other comments, concerns? Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor of allowing Fiona to write a letter on our behalf supporting the passage of that ballot measure, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. I do think it is this Friday, or Friday for the next week. So as long as you get it in by email sometime Friday of this week, we could hope to have it published next week.
Sure. And if anybody has anything specific that they would like to see included, otherwise I'll just do some research and try to just hit the highlights of the proposal.
Yeah, if I don't forget, I'll send you an email or just an introduction to Kara Lee. She's heading up that effort. I've talked to her. I've made my own 3 or 4 sentence recommendation that may or may not be used, but she's heading up the effort, public education part of it or whatever. So I can at least put you guys in contact, and then she can offer you materials or thoughts on that if you want.
Oh, yeah, that would be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, next item for the agenda is Environmental Policy Board reports. The first item is plastic bags. It hasn't moved or nothing has happened here in the last couple of months with COVID. I think once things approach back to normal, there'll probably be a renewed effort to tighten some of that back up. Residential refuse. I don't have an update, but I continue to think it's a good idea for our community to have the single contract in place. Right now it's part of a 5-year contract, I believe, right?
Yes.
Yeah. B City, without Rachel here, I don't know, Riley or does anyone want to talk about B City?
I can give a small update.
And Riley, if you don't mind, you can then move right into your ecoscaping project and update us on that.
Okay. So we were thinking of having a design session outside of the village hall just to talk about, the hardscaping, the plant selection, and things like that. And we were thinking of either doing that the 14th, the 15th, or the 20th of November. And the reason why we were choosing those days is because those were the days when Alexandria from the village board said she could be free to join us. And also they're good days for me too, because weekends tend to work better than weekdays. Now, if any of you guys would be free to join us for one of those days, that would be great, because the more people in the design session, the better. We will make the decision of which one of those dates we will use by this Saturday. And once we will choose a day, I was thinking we could consider doing soil building that day too, but of course we'd also have to talk to Jared about that. So that would be a little bit in the future. So yeah, if any of you would be interested in joining us one of those days for the design session, please let me know. It's the 14th, the 15th, or the 20th of November.
Okay. Any other updates? Any questions for Riley? Okay. Composting the village. Fiona, Annabelle?
Sure, I'll jump in. So, as the weather's getting colder, our time window is kind of closing on a outdoor composting collection system that's based around, outdoor eating. But I think that from the last time I asked, we can have people bring their compost to the Gardens of Nutrition. Though it's been a few months, so I would like to double check with Wendy Toman on that. But I understand that that's probably not going to be highly convenient for most people, unless it's a smaller number. So I asked Janelle for her composting data. I believe she had done a survey a while back, just to make sure that we wouldn't be inundating the Gardens of Nutrition with too much. And looking forward, I am interested in this USDA grant that they ran last year. So unfortunately, we wouldn't be able to jump on board this year, but I'm trying to figure out if they're going to recycle it because I think it would cover most likely all of our costs to maybe establish a relationship with a local vendor or set up something more permanent. Because I think that DEC typically only covers about half of the startup costs, and the EPA currently, I don't think they have any active grants, but that might just be a temporary, fiscal related situation. So anyway, I'm hoping to learn more about this USDA grant. I did reach out about it, but so far I have not found, I guess the silver bullet to a lasting solution.
Yeah, and I don't have anything extra to add right now.
I know Laura Petit, I was speaking with her about composting and topsoil for the ecoscaping project in front of Village Hall, and she is interested in being part of the conversation, I guess, basically. Happy to help support in any way she can. So she would be glad to talk with you, Annabelle and Fiona, and just see what your thoughts are, see if maybe she has more ideas. I know she's been successful at getting grants in the past and just kind of has her finger on the pulse. So maybe she can help sort through some of those items too. I can send an email to connect you if you'd like me to.
Yeah, that would be really great.
Yeah, I think I spoke to her a couple months ago before we set up this sort of temporary project. But I'll definitely reconnect with her. Especially, that's great that she knows a little bit more about the grant side because I've never interacted with any funding. So
yeah, I'll be happy to. I'll send that email, no problem.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, the next item is a new item, and it's something we started working on here in the last month or two. The source of raw water supply study for the village. The village owns and operates the drinking water utility for New Paltz, and also it serves portions of the town. If you have tap water in your house, it's coming from the village here in the New Paltz area. It was a grant, I believe, that was put together, or we were volunteered, but it's a grant funded type effort to study the source water supply risks, threats, direction, and also then expand the knowledge base of community members in regards to that topic. We've had 2 meetings so far. I'd forgotten Fiona is also part of that group, as is Ariana. I think things are going well. We've had 2 meetings so far, and if anyone else wants to add comments to it, but I look forward. We'll have a study coming out of it that'll kind of articulate the different water supply sources and options, threats, and ways that we can protect our drinking water resources.
I have a quick question, actually. Do you guys have any meetings scheduled that are outside of business hours? I haven't been able to do 10 a.m. previously. I don't think I'd be able to, but I don't want to upset the schedule.
So right now we just kind of said, let's stick with the first Thursday of the month at 10 a.m. since that was the time that people were able to make it last month. But I see no reason why we couldn't switch that up and try to get it to be a time when more people could be there. It seems to work for the most part for people. But that doesn't mean that another time wouldn't. So I can talk to Pat Pomeroy about that and see what she says.
Sure. And if I'm the odd man out, I can always, step back from this one if it's just not going to work out. But just in case other people had the same time conflict.
I would support some, we'll say, diversity or switching around. I mean, I've been able to make the Thursday meetings work so far, but a nice mixture would be good too. So I would support, Fiona's request to see if we can't get some different times into the future.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. For me, it's kind of that timing is a little bit difficult. I can come sometimes, but it's not gonna be every time if it stays at 10 a.m. on Thursdays.
This is good feedback. I think that maybe we can figure out a way to have, every other month maybe be a meeting in the evening versus during the day, or maybe everybody could make an evening meeting if we do it on the right day of the week. So I'll definitely follow up with that. Thank you for bringing it up.
That's great. It has been interesting so far. Sorry that you guys couldn't make it, but the 2 meetings so far have been really good. Okay, next time is old business. Review, update of idling laws, other items, related items within New Paltz. I do know that the town is working on some type of, or member on the town environmental conservation board is working on something. They're watching the state legislature to see what's going on, but nothing has really moved forward so far. But it'd be a hope for some type of local effort to update the idling laws here. Subject tasks, I'll keep it on there. I haven't had a chance in the last month to look at either of these items, but an effort to look at the website and update it, maybe add some materials would be great. We do have more information on the budget and spending for EPB. Any other old business? All right. The next item under new business is membership on the board. It is, as we talked about earlier, perhaps premature. We don't know if Rachel's actually left the board or not. But generally speaking, there may be a vacancy, and just to keep your eyes and ears open for a community member that might be interested in helping out. It's also I believe eligible that we could consider research interns to be elevated to that status. I'm not aware of any other reasons why not, but until we have an actual vacancy, we can't really take action, but there's, we could certainly talk about it. Is there any discussion, questions, concerns along those lines that anybody would talk about while we're here? Okay, similar item with the research interns. They've been very effective for us in the past. If someone is interested in an environmental kind of challenge, the community included, those in the audience, please consider reaching out to us, and we could get you going on some type of effort along those lines. Next time is a meeting schedule for 2021. It still is a little bit up in the air, maybe another premature topic to talk about, but we have been advised to maybe lean away from Tuesdays in 2021, but perhaps not. And as long as we keep going by Zoom, we may not need to change. But I think next month, we'll probably have a better ability to talk about what we want our meeting schedule to look like. And more importantly, if we're to go back to physical meetings, what night and time and place that might be. So we'll probably talk more about it next month. Any other new business? Okay, next topic is any other items of interest for the Environmental Policy Board? Anything else out there? Okay, with that, it's a pretty quick meeting, but I'm sure we'll have other things going on too. So if there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 All right,
Aye.
This concludes the Tuesday, October 13th, 2020 meeting of the Village Environmental Policy Board. Thank you all for coming. We'll see you next month.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.